Welcome to Chinmaya Gayatri. Chinmaya Mission is a big international organization. We are a very, very small chapter of a very, very big fish. This is called Chinmaya Gayatri, and this is named after Mata Gayatri or Mother Gayatri. That is her. She is the essence of consciousness, the essence of education, and the keeper of the Vedas, which is the book she is holding here. She is interactive. She's the mother. So at the end, if you want to come take pictures with her, touch her, interact with her in any way you would, mother, please feel free to come up and we'll be happy to assist you. All right, so once again, deep breath in and out. Once more, deep breath in and out. All right, and we're going to play chanting of the Gayatri mantra, which is her mantra. We can get into the meaning later. For now, we just want you to kind of feel whatever you feel. It should affect your brainwaves, even beyond the manual translation of the meaning. So we'll take one more deep breath. At the end of the breath out, close your eyes, be comfortable, and then just listen to the sounds. So one more deep breath in. And as you breathe out, close your eyes.
तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात्। ॐ भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात्। ॐ भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात्। ॐ भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात्। ॐ भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात्। ॐ भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात्। ॐ भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि।
Take a deep breath in, and as you breathe out, open your eyes gently. And if you want, you can kind of rub your hands together, warm them up nice, and now touch over your eyes. Just kind of feels good. All right, any big feelings? All right, this is the quieter group. Okay. I'm going to start with the presentation then, and feel free to interrupt me. This is an open thing, so if you have questions along the way, just raise your hand and we will get into it. All right, so first the word Hinduism itself. That is a word we all know, but technically, for those of us who practice it, we would rather call it Sanatan Dharma. Hinduism is a colonial word kind of given to us just because they didn't know what basket to put us in, and they had to add an ism to it, so it's Hinduism. But it is actually Sanatan Dharma, which is actually just a universal philosophy. So technically, you could be an atheist and still be a Hindu. You could be the supreme devotee and still be a Hindu. You can not be a Hindu and be a Hindu. In that sense, if just being a good human being, essentially, is what Sanatan Dharma preaches. It is one of the oldest religions of the world. The oldest dated thing we have is 5,000 years. But it probably is older than that. So it is older than language itself, where we didn't have paper, we didn't have words, and it was literally carried on by rote memorization from one generation to the next, and ultimately was written down. There is no leader, so to say. There is no pope, which is why it has so many flavors. Everyone practices Hinduism kind of in their own way. There's no standardization. We have all shades and flavors of Hinduism. And ultimately the goal is self-realization, which is become a better person and a better person and a better person until you become one with yourself and kind of become God, because God is in all of us. That is the foundational belief. Even in the sentient beings like an ant or a rat or a dog, God exists in everything. And the more you realize it and practice it and treat others with respect, the closer you get to the higher form. So we have 33 million gods, but essentially we are a monotheistic philosophy, which means there is one supreme being, one power, formless, shapeless, genderless, and then there are manifestations of God. And the 33 million is just to say that you are one of them, and I am one of them as well. And we have obviously the bigger divine forms, which the Brahma, the Vishnu, the Shiva, which kind of are the big three trinity, but again they are expressions of the same, just manifestations. And the other interesting thing in Sanatan Dharma, I think, you shouldn't be comparing religions, but we have a lot of feminine superheroes in our stories. It's not all just a male-led religion. We have had female philosophers, female rishis. Our goddesses are just as powerful as their male counterparts. And in fact, Kali, the one you see with the angry, I call her my menopausal mama bear kind of a thing. She's the one who goes out, and for the biggest demons, she's the one who basically crushes them. So females in our stories are extremely powerful beings and not to be messed with. Yes. Any questions on that? Come on. All right. And so for most of the big gods, there is a goddess counterpart, and they're not necessarily separate. They're kind of a team, two parts of the same coin, if you will, just for a bigger purpose. All right, so the question part of why do we do the things we do, some of the questions that we get asked a lot. So the group before us did ask me, even before I got to the slide, why I am wearing this bindi. Anyone want to take on that question? Okay.
Yeah.
I've got a loud voice, so that just makes it even louder. But my understanding is, and I've grown up in both the Western and the Indian traditions, and my understanding is that from a neurological standpoint, this is where the executive function, this point in your being is, the space of your executive function. And in the Indian philosophy, this is this place of the third eye. And the third eye represents your highest self, the highest knowledge and God and the self. And so the bindi is a way of honoring your own inner self, the highest self.
Right, and the focus of vision rather than sight, because sight judges, vision doesn't judge as much. So that is the philosophy, and she brought up a very beautiful point, bringing in neurology to kind of the scriptural concepts. And it is very, very interesting that our rishis, even thousands and thousands of years, were highly scientific. So our Vedas mention mathematics. They measure the distance from the earth to the sun. They describe the atom. And I am an astrophysics enthusiast by association, because my husband, who's handling the AV system, is a bigger enthusiast, so I have to listen to him. So, even the bigger astrophysical, whether the theory of relativity, whether the string theory of whether, energy is help me out, Rajiv, is a wave or a particle.
Quantum.
Yeah, so quantum mechanics, those kind of concepts are actually mentioned in the Vedas. Most of our strict religious practices, like the Gayatri mantra that we just chanted, has a very specific ups and downs and a specific waveform in sound. And sound, we believe, is the original energy, the Om, the Big Bang. So it describes the Big Bang as well. And certain sounds create certain effects in us because we are mostly water, and the way the water molecules vibrate in your body sets off different energies. So depending on the mantra you choose, it could be a learning mantra, which is the Gayatri mantra. So if you listen to it before the exam, supposedly you do well. And my study of one, my son took his SAT, and the second one that he took, while he didn't want to talk to me in the car, and for that moment I was the most obnoxious person in the universe for him, I quietly just played the Gayatri mantra in the car, and he did ace it. So whatever that means, but it does it sets you up for learning. Supposedly you absorb more, you perform better intellectually. Same thing for healing. There is the Mahamantra, the Mrityunjay mantra, which if you play to someone who's sick in the hospital, does align their body more for healing. So it is very, very scientific. The architecture, the math, it's all inbuilt into it. All right, so coming to Om, which is...
Question.
Yeah. Someone had a question? Okay. So coming to the sound Om itself, which is again, it represents the infinite, the original power form. If you want, that's the sound of the Big Bang. That's how universe originated. And it has 4 distinct parts: the A, the U, the M, and then the silence. So the first 3 parts, the A, U, M, and if you say it, you'll actually feel the vibration, and it does create a certain energy, especially if there are hundreds of people chanting it together. Represents the 3 stages and 3 different stages of sleep, wake, dream. Thank you. I forgot dream. And the silence part is the infinite part, or the God. So it's not just the sound Om, the 4th part is the silence, or the in between the next Om that starts. The lamp, and you'll notice that Hindus do love to light lamps. Light to us represents knowledge. And the oil is all your vasanas, or your bad thoughts, if you will, that's slowly getting burnt by education or intellect. That's a very, very basic explanation. And then there's symbolism in the sense of we have lots of gods that look very, very different, and each one of them symbolizes a different set of values. Ultimately, you want them all, but depending on where you are in the journey, we encourage people to find their own god according to what their predilection is. So, for example, Hanuman, the monkey god, is the muscular god. He's a man of action. He gets things done. So, in India, you'll notice that most of the bodybuilding spots have Hanuman there because he's the ultimate bodybuilder. So whatever you get drawn to, essentially. Coming to symbolism, so this is a very common picture that you'll see in a lot of our temples. What this is the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, where Arjuna, the supreme warrior, is in a battlefield, and he is the most skilled warrior, and his chariot is there ready to start war, and he has a major identity crisis. And in the description, it sounds like a panic attack, where he says, I'm lifting up my bow, but my hands are shaking, and I can't aim right, etc., etc. And basically, he's fighting his own cousins and his own family members. So it is a battle of good versus evil, but there's family involved in the good and evil. And he has a real crisis. But and Bhagavad Gita, we believe, can be applied to almost any situation in life. The previous group, we joked about a bakery, which goodie you pick out in the bakery. The Bhagavad Gita can help you out with that. The 5 horses here are the senses. I'll get to it. You have a look of confusion.
No, I'm understanding what you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the 5 horses up front are our 5 senses. And if you don't watch them, they're going to go in all kinds of different directions. I want to eat this. I want to buy this. I want to feel this. I want to sleep longer. I want to have silk touching my skin. And the rain is our intellect. That's our decision-making area of the brain. And that decides and kind of holds them and says, let's channel this energy a little bit. The chariot is our body. Arjuna, the warrior who's seen here with a bow and arrow, is us. And then God is the charioteer or the chauffeur in this case. And the Bhagavad Gita is a conversation between them. And that's why we encourage questions, because all our religious texts are a conversation between 2 people. So is the Bhagavad Gita, where the Arjuna questions. At that time, he doesn't know Sri Krishna is God. To him, he's just his cousin who's driving his chariot for him. And he asks, how do I know this is the right thing to do? I am having a crisis. And then they just sit down in the middle of the battlefield and have a back and forth question, which is the Bhagavad Gita. These are some of the other symbols you've seen. To the left, our elephant god is Bhagwan Ganesha. And again, every part of his body is symbolic. Why does he have only one tusk? Why does he have a long nose? Why does he have a big belly? Why is he eating all those sweets? Why is there a rat? Each one of these things means a different thing.
There's no rat in there.
Okay, yes, in that picture there isn't, but there's usually a rat with him, a mouse, yeah. Good observation. We'll have to correct our pictures. All right, and that is Lord Shiva. He is the destroyer, but he is also a very strong example of masculine energy, he's a very good mix of masculine and feminine, because he's a warrior, he's described as very muscular and, can do whatever he wants, kind of a thing, sets people straight all the time. But at the same time, he's also a great musician and a great dancer. That's his Nataraja form, the dancing form that you also see in a lot of places. Yes, Chris?
What about the Shiva Lingam?
The Shiva Lingam, the origin of that is that at one point, I'm going to skip over the whole story and just come to the crux of the matter. He represented himself as a pole of light and challenged a few gods to find the end of the light, basically. And that's how he's depicted as a cylinder, but it is in what we call a lingam, which represents kind of the feminine part. He will explain it better. So it's a mixture again of feminine and masculine energy, because him and his wife Parvati, they really do a lot of things together. He'll explain it better.
No, I think the word linga means an indicator. So that is a representation of Bhagavan Shiva. So typically, in places, for example, when some of the monks and then rishis, when they wanted to worship, they needed to find an indicator to be able to start their meditation on Bhagavan Shiva. So the linga form, when it is in union with the entire surrounding form, essentially allows one to meditate on it. So linga just means an indicator. It's a representation of Bhagavan Shiva.
And for those who don't know what he's talking about, sometimes Shiva is represented as just a long cylindrical stone. And in some of the temples in South India, actually, there are geomagnetic things attached to it, and the stones are a lot of the times geomagnetic, and some of them even lift up in the air. So, but that's the mysticism of it that we don't need to get into right now. Any other questions? Yeah.
The symbol of the lotus flower, what does that mean? I see that a lot. I'm just curious.
Yeah, that's a very good question.
Did anyone hear the question?
The question is that what is the symbolism of the lotus flower? So lotus plant itself grows in ponds and in lakes and things like that. And the lake may be polluted, having polluted water, but the lotus leaf itself does not really get contaminated with it. And out of that comes this very precious and beautiful looking lotus flower. So it is supposed to represent the beautiful part of, for example, a contaminated or a dirty lake. And when you focus on that, your mind instantly is focusing towards good thoughts. And we typically represent most of our goddesses in particular, as sitting on that flower, because they are then able to pass that clean thoughts and other things to us. So here Gayatri Devi as well as Lakshmi Devi, they sit on that. Good question. Yeah.
And the application of that, in our life is that joy is not contextual. You could be in a really, really bad circumstance and still remain unaffected from it internally. Yes.
So the soul is eternal. We know that, Atma. Well, what is the origin of the soul? Where did it originate?
Yeah. So the soul itself is what we consider as the essential being that can transmigrate from one life to another. In reality, what we believe is that there is only one soul, which is essentially belonging to the Supreme Consciousness. So that particular a portion of it is manifested in all living beings. So if you were to, let me give you an analogy. Suppose if I take a glass of water from an ocean and then I keep it separately, that particular water assumes a shape and a form. I could take it in a different vessel, then it will assume that shape and form. When the soul actually matures in an individual, and that soul is dropped You take that water and put it back in the ocean, and then you ask, where is that water that belonged in that particular glass? It has no identity at that point in time. It is one with the Supreme Consciousness.
So it is qualitatively the same as the Supreme Consciousness. But
It is-
quantitatively, it is not. It's like if you take a drop of water from the ocean and you analyze it, it will be exactly what the ocean is. But the quantity is not the same. It is just a drop. So the Supreme Consciousness is the vast, all the souls are included in the Supreme Consciousness. And this soul is individual to each person.
Yes, but in quality as well, it is identical to the Supreme Consciousness.
Not in quantity.
But the disposition of the soul is colored by our tendencies called vasanas, which then bring up our behavioral patterns, which then manifest into our thoughts. And those thoughts then manifest into our actions. And then each person, because of their nature of having different tendencies and different thoughts and different actions, will appear to us as though they have an individuality. But when those tendencies are sublimated, if you will, where their influence is becoming smaller and smaller, at that point in time, you are attaining God-like or the Supreme Conscious-like individuality. So the purpose for us to do meditation and prayers and other things is to sublimate our tendencies to a point where we attain that very calm status in our mind without disturbances.
Hari Om.
Can we,
I think in the interest of
in
time.
the interest of time, because that's
Let's
a
take the
very, very
questions.
deep theological discussion that is, anyone has light, superficial questions, otherwise let's move on to food.
Yeah, this is philosophical questions.
That is deep, I
can-
get you, but let's talk it over lunch.
Yes, let's talk it over lunch.
Anything else?
There's no questions.
All right, so thank you so much for coming, we really appreciate it. We'll move on to the Venkatesh temple, Sri Venkatesh temple for food. The exit will be through the back door there.
Over there,